Mr. Fitzgerald Hinds.
Out comes the sun, shining on my face again. Grades get me high, high so I can meditate. Dreams of brighter days. Highest grades we blaze.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Selector, what a beautiful one. Thank you very much. My brother and friend, the Member of Parliament for St. Joseph, Minister of Health, thank you very much for your kind introduction in your capacity as Master of Ceremonies of these very beautiful PNM proceedings here in Barataria. My other cabinet and parliamentary colleagues, led, of course, by the very distinguished political leader and Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. Let me in that spirit recognize Madam Camille Robinson-Regis, my brother Stuart Young, Minister Nyan Gatsby-Dolly, and of course, party officers, among whom is Madam Joan Yule Williams, our deputy political leader, the chairman of the San Laventille Regional Corporation, who addressed us and welcomed us so beautifully a moment ago, Mr. Anthony Roberts, all the local government representatives in the House and the candidates who will take the mantle up where others left off, the council members of the San Laventille Regional Corporation, party members generally, members of the media, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, including, of course, all the listeners and viewers in radio and TV land across Trinidad and Tobago and the world. Barbados, a small island state a few miles from here, had an elections just about 3 weeks or so ago. The outgoing Prime Minister, Juan Frondel Stewart, was replaced by the incoming Mia Motley. I understand from my readings and observation that the economy was the big issue in Barbados. I'm fully aware that within the last 2 years, the Barbadian government had to relieve approximately 3,000 public servants of the 26,000 on their payroll, because based on economic circumstances, they did that to save 140 million Barbadian dollars per year. As soon as Mia Motley came to office, a few days later, as you would have read yourselves, the country has gone into the embrace of the IMF program for its recovery. I remember our Prime Minister, our very distinguished leader, returning to Trinidad from a Heads of Government, CARICOM Heads of Government conference some time ago, and telling us in the cabinet that one of the things that touched him very deeply was a breakfast, I think it was, with 3 or 4 of his counterparts who would lead other islands in the region. And among the things he would learn is that in those cases, those prime ministers would meet almost on a daily basis with their Minister of Finance, with the clerk of the peace of the court, to see what he collected in terms of fines the day before. The folks down at the Inland Revenue who will tell them what they collected, all of that on a daily basis, before they could decide what they could spend in that economy each day. When he told us that, it struck me of other people's realities. And I thank God in my heart that we hadn't gotten to that point. However, I have become aware that my Prime Minister meets with his Minister of Finance at least every Monday morning to get a briefing, not for those extreme reasons. Let us welcome the man I've just spoken to. Not for those extreme reasons, but just to ensure that together they steer this country skillfully and delicately and carefully along a very treacherous path. And today, after 2 years and approximately 8 months, we could thank God, no IMF. We could thank God that we have stabilized the economy of Trinidad and Tobago from the turbulence that we met. And you would have heard on diverse occasions what we met. We could thank God that we have had no massive layoff of jobs. Most of you have been able to keep your jobs so you get your weekly, fortnightly, or monthly incomes to deal with your children, to deal with your families, to deal with your mortgages. Don't take it for granted, ladies and gentlemen. There are many countries where the circumstances are markedly different. The very rich, oil-rich and gas-rich Venezuela next door is the best testimony of that. 2 years and 8 months or so later, not a single one of my ministerial colleagues could be justifiably accused of putting our hands in the public till. Not one. And 2 years and 8 months later, I had the joy, the pleasure of seeing the hardworking, deep-thinking Minister of Finance under the leadership of the very wise and experienced Prime Minister say to the country, thank God, I can see clearly now. We're not out of the woods. We're not out of the woods, but we can see clearly now. This didn't come by chance. It would have come as a result of tremendous hard work, dedication to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and as I indicated at least on 2 occasions, the steady, dignified, serious leadership of our political leader. Rastafari. So we say so far, so good. But all of that could not happen on its own without the understanding and patient citizenry that you, Trinidad and Tobago, have been. Because you are accustomed to a very high standard of living. You've had to make adjustments. So let us congratulate ourselves. You have been understanding. You have been patient. Tonight, I want to speak to you and the young people across Trinidad and Tobago who are listening to us a little bit about crime, because this is proving to be one of the major challenges that we are facing as a government. This is a source of deep pain and concern to us because we see, we hear, we read, we experience the bleeding, the trauma, the discomfort that the people of Trinidad and Tobago are experiencing at the hands of a few who choose to make crime a way of life and who, rather than work hard, get skills, get qualification, engage in businesses, small, medium, or large, to earn an income, they choose to prey on the weak and on soft targets. It is proving to be a major challenge for us. That the government is responsible for the safety, security, and in that sense, well-being of the people of Trinidad and Tobago is not in dispute. That the crime situation is a burdensome and challenging experience for all of us, that too is not in dispute. The crime is no longer associated with East Port of Spain, particularly the constituency that I represent. It has now spread all over Trinidad and Tobago, and some of the most horrific incidents are reported day by day. What then is our responsibility? In the Parliament, we pass laws. Some we can pass on our own without the support of the other side. Some we would need their support, and very often when we seek that support, it is not forthcoming. We have to prize it out of them, but we have pledged to continue working in your best interest, and we make adjustments as we could, because to do the job, we must do it, and we will do it with or without their support. But we recognize sensibly that it is only the police service that could do this job, Because we could preach from the platform, preach from the cabinet, preach from the parliament, in tone where we have to do what we want. At the end of the day, the only organization paid and sworn and with the responsibility to do the job of protecting you and I from crime, stand between you and I and the criminals, is the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. A couple days ago, we proclaimed the anti-gang law. On that occasion, we pleaded with them for a second or third time to give us support, not for our sake, for your sake, because we don't talk for ourselves. We could defend ourselves, some of us. I can. But for you, we pleaded with them, and finally, after much ado, we got their support, and we passed the anti-gang law. The police said they wanted it, and all right-thinking citizens understood it. This law criminalizes membership of gangs in a way it wasn't done before. Well, it was before, and then, of course, the law expired in 2016. The UNC mucked about in the parliament until we passed it again recently. And as I said, we proclaimed it. It criminalizes leadership of gangs, where two or more persons come together for some criminally defined purposes. That is a gang. 25 years for law enforcement officers who participate in gang activity, and some have done in the past, and some do, not just in Trinidad, everywhere. 30 years if you wound or shoot a police officer. 25 years if you force, coerce, or encourage persons to become gang members. 30 years for retaliatory offenses. Right now I know of a case where a gentleman learned who killed a member of his family, and he is now under threat. They are threatening him because he saw, a couple hours ago, we saw another citizen killed. The story is that he witnessed a murder. It happened again in Tunapuna last week. Very frequent. 30 years for retaliatory action for that sort of thing. 10 years for harboring a gang member. 15 years for concealing one. 20 years for recruiting. And the law states very clearly the evidence that must be produced to satisfy the court to convict on those offenses. Arrest without warrant in certain circumstances. Forfeiture of property if convicted for a gang offense. Some of these offenses, ladies and gentlemen, include possession of firearms, cursing or encouraging gang membership, possession of bulletproof vests, recruiting a gang member, demanding money with menaces, murder, shooting or wounding, possession of firearm and ammunition, trafficking in dangerous drugs, all of the sexual offenses, rape, sexual assault, kidnapping for ransom or kidnapping simpliciter, offenses under the Anti-Terrorism Act, offenses relating to dangerous drugs under the Children's Act, procuration for the purposes of prostitution, living off the earnings of prostitution, meeting a child following sexual grooming. These are some of the offenses that are caught up in the anti-gang law. Stringent legislation. It should really have been accompanied with a stringent bail bill where if you are charged for a gang offense, you would not have received bail under 60 days if your matter did not begin in the court. But the UNC indicated in everything they said and done that they will not give us that support. So we have the anti-gang law, and we are making the best of it. But on the other hand, with all of that stringent law, with all of those sentences, no member of the government could tell a magistrate or a judge what sentence to apply. And you would have seen recent cases. The police spend hours doing surveillance work, undercover work, getting information, building a case. They move in. They find someone with ammunition and drugs, and they go to court. Magistrates have fined people $2,500 for a gun, when the information is that they cost about $7,000 on the black market. Millions of dollars in cocaine, some little slap on the wrist, And I can only ask on your behalf to the judiciary, we need to have a better sentencing policy so that when the police carry out their work, they would not be frustrated by these pats on the wrist and the criminal walk away laughing to get the next victim and make addicts of your children with their dangerous drugs. A magistrate could give up to 10 years in jail. They seldom do. And of course, the bigger sentences that I spoke about, judges can do that. We need swifter court proceedings and of course, stiffer sentences by the courts. Send a clear message to criminals. These matters we have no control over as a government. All we could do is provide resources to the judiciary and call on them to do, as I have just done, what we expect them to do. I saw a young man in today's papers begging for mommy when they sent his little self to jail for 510 days. So many of our young people are so easily misled. 2 police officers approach him. I'm calling on the young people across Trinidad and Tobago to think, conduct yourselves with some good behavior and order. You don't have to be like that, because when you get sent to the calaboose, you hear him shouting, mommy, mommy, like a big baby today. I'm sure you read it. So I'm asking you young people in this hall tonight and across this country to brace up. There are so many opportunities available for you and to you, starting with a sound education program at no direct cost to you or your family. A guarantee of tertiary level education once you qualify for it. Small means test today. As we speak, the cabinet recognizing that many senior citizens in particular have been victims of criminals who literally throw them out the house. I know many houses in my own constituency and across this country where they firebomb somebody, can't frighten the people have to flee. And once the house becomes unoccupied, or the person goes to America for 2 months, when they come back, criminals in there, and nobody can do anything about it. And when they go to the police telling them about, to some extent, naturally so, about deed, and you have to prove ownership and all these complications. The Prime Minister, seeing that, told us in the Office of the Attorney General to prepare legislation to make it a criminal offense. So if you're in somebody's house and you don't have deed, when the police come, they can arrest you and take you to the criminal court, and you'll be met with 5 years jail if they had to. That is what we have done. And that matter is receiving the immediate attention of the cabinet and hopefully to be passed into law for your protection. Electronic monitoring. That law was passed since 2012, I think it was. And they have dilly-dallied with it. Well, we came to office, we got a hold of it, polished it up. We employed the people in the electronic monitoring unit, and we have put them to work. You may have seen on the television, I brought them before me in my Joint Select Committee on National Security and grilled them and drilled them and urged them to get the job done. We expect to see this, because electronic monitoring will mean, rather than pack up people in the jail, we could put on an electronic bracelet and we could control where they could go. So you women who are particularly the victims of domestic violence, we could control them without having to feed them in the prison. And if they go outside of the space, an alarm goes off, the police will be on the scene, and back inside they go. We amended the DNA legislation, and we just settled the DNA regulations. I can tell you, citizens, all the time since we passed that law in 2005, the forensic science and the crime scene experts have been collecting data, stains, samples on crime scenes, and they've been storing them. Now that we have spruced up the law, and now that we have put the regulations in place, and I can tell you proudly, on the urging of the Prime Minister, through the Minister of National Security and the Office of the Attorney General, we have now procured the kits and the equipment and the swabs, and we are ready to roll. And we can go now to the prison and take the DNA samples involuntarily from prisoners of certain categories and all persons who are suspects in the hands of the police in police stations. And that way we will build up a data bank and we'll have more people on the bank. So the samples we get from crime scenes could start matching with those and we could identify criminals using the best scientific methods to make the job of detecting crime easier. All of this requires, as you would understand, an effective, smooth-running, well-oiled, well-motivated police service. Because as I told you, it is only the police who can do this work, much as we would like to do otherwise. It is only the police. They have to investigate crime. They have to prosecute people for crimes, bring them before the court. In 2012, when we were in opposition, again my leader summoned the government, led by the Prime Minister, and we offered them, Camille Robinson Regis, myself, Dale Singh, and a couple others. We approached the then government with a 10-point plan. The first 2 items on that, we told them, you have our support. Anything you bring to the parliament to make more efficient and to make smoother and swifter the hiring of a police commissioner, my leader told them, you have our support. They did nothing about it. We would discover in our inquiries, of course. They came to office in 2010. They left in 2015. They did not amend the order to hire the commissioner, and they did not embark on a procedure. It took our government, when we came to office in September of 2015, by December of 2015, we amended the order of the court, and we said, the president, and we said it is time to recruit a police commissioner. And when we did that, Madam Kamla Prasad Bisesa, senior counselor she is. Don't discuss how she gets it, but she have it. She took that matter to court personally, challenging the constitutionality of the order as it was drafted. And Mr. Justice Rajkumar, sitting in the High Court, agreed that there were elements. There was one element of it in particular where the Minister of National Security had to indicate to the Police Service Commission, you should begin the process to recruit a commissioner. The court found that the government should have no dealing or contact with that and excised that part to make it constitutionally sound. So it was as soon as we came to government, we did that. And then the Police Service Commission, after the court's judgment and the restructuring of the order, began the process to recruit a commissioner. And you would have seen last night, as we displayed, thank God the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition agreed that we should have a special select committee to look into this matter. Previously, the Service Commission was a cloistered virtue in an air-conditioned room someplace. Nobody would have known how they arrived at what they arrived at. On this occasion, we were able to look inside of the process and we saw a number of flaws that we outlined. People who did not apply for the position of commissioner ended up being top of the list for commissioner. When the law says the assessment should be done by a firm called KPMG, the Police Service Commission was involved in the assessment along with KPMG. And when the results of that assessment became known, the law says you should pass that assessment result to the Police Service Commission on its own for its deliberate judgment to decide the order of merit list. The list that the Police Service Commission and the firm concocted in that process with all kinds of issues. The Police Service Commission, getting it again, overturned it. Persons who were number 11 end up at number 3. Persons who were number 2 end up at number 11, all kind of kankatang. And I take no joy in it because it gives Fitzgerald Hinds and it gives this government no joy. This is a national failure. We need a commissioner of police. The law was clear. We have a service commission in office, professional people, law, business, all kinds of skills. It records as a national failure. That is a matter for the president. The bottom line is we have to send it back to the very Service Commission. And as the Prime Minister told the country last night, we are going to review the order because now, as distinct from when that order was established in 2015, we have now seen best practice recruitment for commissioner and deputies in other parts of the world, and we have promised to review it to make it more in keeping with modern standards. Would you believe? They recruited a commissioner and deputies for you, and not one of them was polygraphed. But the law requires best practice security vetting. That clearly, to my mind, is a breach of the law. Because what they did could never equate with best practice. Never. So we could not support that. We took the positions we took last night. It may inconvenience some, but we do it in the public interest and with good governance in mind. The other thing we did, when we were in opposition, in addition to telling them they have our support for the appointment of a commissioner, whatever form it came, we also told them in that 10-point plan, number 2 on the agenda, you need to conduct a manpower audit of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. They're always saying they're understaffed, and we know that there are certain skill sets that are now required: forensic accounting, forensic auditing, all kinds of skills a modern police organization deserves and demands to function effectively in this time. So we told them a manpower audit was critical. What did Kamla Prasad and her hosts do? Nothing. It took my Prime Minister, as soon as we came to office, he established a manpower audit committee led by Professor Ramesh Deosaran, a number of top-level thinkers, academics, and former permanent secretary. And they went to work in the police service. They went to Tobago, they went high, they went low, they interviewed police officers, they garnered statistics, they spent months. They asked for an extension, we gave them that. They produced a report. And to the Prime Minister's credit, as it was produced, he forwarded it to the Parliament because he wanted the Parliament to be involved in this. This is not a government thing. This is not a PNM thing. This is a national concern. The police organization is important to every one of us because after God is police. You travel every day, you go to sleep every day. The day they tell you it wouldn't have a police in town, you're staying home. Bad as they are, complain as you do. And I want to take the opportunity to sincerely congratulate the men and women of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Because this society could never pay them for the work they do. Not all are the best things in sliced bread. And that very police service have to purge them out. Because the police service has a soul, it has an aura. And the aura and the soul of the police service don't need no criminal. It don't need no backsliders. It needs honesty, integrity, hard work, dedication, and patrioticness. And so, the matter of the manpower audit report is before the Joint Select Committee on National Security. I'm happy to inform you, Honorable Political Leader and Prime Minister, I'm happy to inform Trinidad and Tobago that in keeping with the swift trend that you demanded, we are just about to issue the report of the Joint Select Committee on that matter, and within a week or two, it will be on the Parliament's desk, sir. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as I told you, the police organization is the only organization to deal with this problem. So it is our duty, the 160 plus first division officers and the 7,000 or so second division officers from inspector down. It is our duty to provide them with the resources they need, to provide them with the equipment they need, to provide them with the training they need. The Prime Minister, as chairman of the National Security Council, and other members of that council meet regularly with the leadership of the police service and even other ranks and encourage them to come on up, do the business, get highly motivated in the protection of the citizens of this country. That is our job, and that we will do. Thank you very much, my dear lady. We all work very, very hard. That we will do. They have to be highly motivated to fight crime. The whole thing, the police is just a small part. We at the Office of the Attorney General, we are concerned about the entire criminal justice system, starting with the police, through the courts, into the prisons, and and for rehabilitation in there. It's a continuum. The police is just a small part of that. The office of the DPP is equally critical. They too were claiming to be short on resources. Since we have come to government, we have provided office location in Tobago, office location, better accommodation in San Fernando, and looking for a better place in Port of Spain. We provide them with the resources they need so that the office of the DPP, which has criminal prosecutions as its mandate, will do that. We are in the process of establishing a special division of the High Court called the Criminal Division. You'll have specialist courts dealing with various types of criminal matters, specialist judges, criminal masters, and criminal rules, all designed to make the system swifter as we go forward. But before I close, I must tell you, all of that is fine. But every single individual, and it takes a little courage to say this, because if I said this in the parliament, those non-thinking people opposite would say, you're blaming the people and it's your responsibility. What rubbish. What rubbish. The citizens, every single one of us, have to take some personal care. You can't be walking around flaunting things so that people will make you an easy target. You have to secure yourself. Be very watchful. The police tell you that. Be very careful. You have a role to play. And most of all, when you see wrongdoing, I know it's challenging because they're killing people and killing witnesses. But as we improve the system, that will become less of a problem. But if you see something, you should find someone who you can trust and share it, because crime don't like darkness. Crime don't like light. It enjoys darkness and secrecy and silence. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we dealt with that matter as I close in the parliament, I was on my way here tonight. And I was not astounded because I know the culture of Trinidad and Tobago. I was not happy, though, to hear a citizen of this country claiming to be a pundit, blaming what transpired in the parliament yesterday on the sour business of race. I want to say two things. Every student of sociology will know they have a chapter in textbook called race and race relations. That is not a matter that is unknown to human beings. If you can discuss the matter dispassionately and intellectually, nothing is wrong. We all do that. But I was a little bit perturbed last night. So I just want to, for the benefit of the citizens, to say all that we did, as we did when Mr. Williams was rejected back in, I think, 2008 or thereabout, we do it with no consideration of race and in the best public interest. When you read, if you get access to the details, it's all in the parliament, the Hansard is there. You will see the painstaking process we went through to get to the bottom of it. And at the bottom of it, we saw flaws that were fatal to the process. And the PNM, in your interest, stood on the principle of what is right. I would like to thank you very much. I would like to encourage you to continue to be patient. Continue to support your government. Disregard wholeheartedly what those wicked, deceitful, treacherous people must say. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. And we will always prevail. I thank you.